because then people wouldn't be coming up. There'd be no false hope that if you come up and make it
People
past
are
the law,
still going
happens.
to, especially if we are going to be cutting humanitarian aid to the countries that need it the most at this moment to deal with this crisis. And we all agree it's a humanitarian crisis. You're going to have people who are still going to be trying to leave. We're having some issues right now with Mexico, who's now said that they don't want to do the fast track system and keep the migrants there. People are going to continue to come. And I agree, we need order at the border, and we need a kind and compassionate and fair way of dealing with all of this. But you say people who lived in San Diego decades ago, we had a much bigger illegal immigration problem decades ago. Customs and Border Patrol data shows that it's 90% down from the year 2000. So when people push back, like Nancy Pelosi and others have been paying attention, Senator Hirano, and they say this is an emergency.
If that's the case, then why did they build 600 plus miles of wall?
Oh, this isn't, listen, we've talked about this a number of times, and there are many.
If those numbers are true, and I don't doubt that your research is right, but if the end result of what you're saying were true, why did we need 600 plus miles of? And by the way, we should ask Democrats specifically why that is.
They do, and many of them voted for it, and many today are even saying there should be extensions of physical barriers where it makes sense. We heard that from Steny Hoyer, Jim Clyburn, et cetera. But the wall has obviously become a lightning rod issue here. And the reason that the numbers matter about it is you don't have the flow of migrants that you did have then. So it is unnecessary to be building a wall of the size that the president is asking
But Jessica, I think the point that a lot of people would make is that when you talk about there isn't the flow through this area because there's a wall there. I mean, and it's going to other spots where there isn't a wall. I think his point is that it's worked in San Diego.
And Democrats, or some Democrats, don't deny that they don't want the 600.
But not Nancy Pelosi.
Well, she doesn't want to undo the walls that are already there.
Well,
so
she should. If she says walls are immoral, she should want to tear them all down. Look, I think that everyone in this situation is kind of acting like children. We have Republicans saying no wall, no deal. We have Democrats saying no deal with a wall. And I've seen, I mean, didn't you learn how to compromise in preschool? Like, I've seen preschool-age children better at compromising with how to share their crayons than I've seen these politicians being able to compromise and how to work the government. I'm concerned that there could be another shutdown because this is the exact same thing that was going on when we were in the shutdown.
Especially since we're not actually talking about a wall anymore.
So, you know what? I want to go back to what you said at the top, though, Mike, about how this is more of a crisis than an argument about, you know, whether or not drugs or other things are coming across. Because we just saw a huge haul of fentanyl go through and get caught through a port of entry. So that the drug problem, it seems like, is outside the boundaries of this as much. But you say that this should specifically be framed because amnesty.org, and I've got their website up here now, is putting out numbers like 1 in 20 women over the age of 15 has been raped. And they looked at more than just our country, but coming across borders. And when you have those migrations, 1 in 10 has experienced some type form of sexual violence. That's a lot of people. Those are staggering numbers. And again, that's on the amnesty.org website. Yep. Anybody can check it. So this isn't even a matter of Democrats or Republicans having a vision about walls and barriers or whatnot. Those numbers are staggering. And whatever we can do to, you know, mitigate that crisis as human beings, we should want to do.
I am for speeding up the asylum process and the legal immigration process to great amounts. We need to speed it up a lot. I think that's totally fine. In San Diego County, just last week, the county voted on opening up a migrant shelter in downtown San Diego. We want migrants to go to an embassy in a neighboring country from where you're fleeing or to our port of entry so that we can then give you proper care and put you in a shelter and connect you with people and places to go. That's a compassionate thing to do.
Are you confident that we can do that? Because right now we have detention centers that are overrun. And this is a conversation that Jessica and I have all the time. And she's right about this. Like, we're at capacity as it is. And so that's going to be something
there's the compromise. There's the compromise, right? So we build some walls in some places where it's necessary, not everywhere, but where it's necessary in exchange for
where it's possible.
Sure. And in exchange for a lot more money to speed up the asylum process. Fair? That sounds pretty good.
Well, it does, and that's why Jim Clyburn said towards the end of the shutdown that he is confident that we can come to some compromise deal that includes it's a smart wall, right? It has technology where you need technology and extension of physical barriers where you need extension of physical barriers. I think that people can get on this.
That seems so reasonable. What you just said, it seems so easy.
And a top Democrat said it.
But so much of it is about semantics and wanting to say, oh, well, the wall will rally his base. It'll fire up his base. Trump will see it as a success. And they don't want to do that. I think so much of it is about politics.
North of 300,000 created jobs.
Yes.
That came out today.
Yes.
I mean, They've got to
That should be
fire up a
firing up.
compromise.
That should be firing up everyone, by the way.
Yeah, but they've got to fire up a compromise. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to pause here.
Yeah.
Nope, we're not. Okay. We're not going to pause.
Good, I'll keep talking. I'm a radio host. I got a lot more
All
to
right.
say.
So meanwhile, January's jobs numbers, which I just talked about, are shattering expectations despite the recent partial government shutdown. The economy, as I mentioned, but here's the full number, 304,000 non-farm jobs we added. That marks 100 straight months of job growth. All-time record, people. The unemployment rate ticks slightly higher to 4%, which the Labor Department says is a likely technicality of the shutdown due to some workers being temporarily listed as unemployed. And wages also continued improving in January, growing 3.2% over the same period last year. Now, a look at the Dow. It's Friday. And boom, there it is. We're in green territory here. And that's good. You know, we've burst above 25,000 again, Melissa being Money Melissa, that is. So we're in some good territory there. And the president is touting the numbers by tweeting this: best January for the Dow in 30 years. We have by far the strongest economy in the world, exclamation point. I come to you, Money.
Yes, well, that is true. We do have a very strong economy. There are a couple things that are working in the market's favor right now. A China deal looks like it's getting closer to coming together. We're not going to get everything we want out of that.
Neither will they.
There was never a chance we were going to do that. It's going to be interesting to see what we do get. What the market wants to see is the tariff battle to end, and we're getting closer to that. The Federal Reserve is also looking to be a little more relaxed about tightening the money supply. That wage growth is great. People going back to work, obviously huge. More people coming in off the sidelines, thinking that they can get a job. I mean, these are the kind of things. Ironically, within that, though, you see we need more skilled labor and we need more day workers.
And
we
trained
need
labor,
immigration reform. That goes into this conversation as well and would be a way to keep the economic ball rolling.
Yeah, proof that tax cuts work too.
Well,
There's got to be some connection there. Also, one more thing, because I remember there's a lot of talk during the shutdown that the shutdown was going to affect the economy, and there was some big bank president saying that the GDP growth may be zero this quarter because of the shutdown. I mean, clearly that had no effect whatsoever. And it was the Commerce Secretary who said if all these employees never got their back pay, it would only affect GDP by 0.3%.
And it would affect those
so
people.
I want to go to Kat on
We're on
this.
big picture.
I want to go to Kat on this real quickly, if I can.
But we do need to see those GDP numbers when they actually come out, and it will have some impact on there. But I do believe you're right; it's temporary. Go ahead.
So Kat, you know, we talk about what it feels like. It's like the wind chill effect or the heat index of the economy, right? So all these numbers can be there, but it's how people feel. And I check in on that by seeing not only job creation, but as Melissa was pointing out, people now feeling like if they apply for a job, they can just get one. They don't need three that they needed after the Great Recession to match what they had.
Right. Yeah, the economy is strong and people are feeling that. And I think that that's something that we need to all be excited about. I think that the tendency of a lot of Democrats is to kind of root for things to not go well because then President Trump is doing well. And I think that this is something that we should all be celebrating today. We should all be happy that the shutdown didn't have the impact that a lot of Democrats were saying that it might have, or even some economists were saying that it might have. We should all be happy that that didn't happen.
Are you happy, Jessica, that this happened?
I'm like 90% happy, which is really high for me. But
You're always super happy.
no, I am always happy. But I do think an interesting point to look at it is the wage growth, and that's what Democrat candidates for president are going to have to be focused on. I'm a big fan of Sherrod Brown, comes from Ohio, talks about his campaign, soon to be launched, I hope, is, you know, the slogan is dignity of work. And when you look at the wage growth, it was only 3-cent wage growth in January and 85 cents over the last year. And when you look at how well the economy did do in terms of adding jobs, that's not as much growth as you would like to see. So when I look at these numbers, I think, yes, absolutely, 300,000 jobs. That's awesome. We'll wait for the GDP numbers. But we do need to be focusing on that wage growth. And I do think that's where Democrats will be putting their attention in this. No crumbs comments, of course.
Can I just ask a question about how the communication that's coming out of the Democratic Party now, and I'll even say it's more of a whole now because it seems like there's much more voice amplitude about this issue, and that is the extra taxation of people who make above a certain amount.
About 10 million.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, if you look at candidates like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, they've been talking about this a long time. AOC is a great spokesperson.
So how do you
for that.
raise wages? What's the plan? Are you going to redistribute that wealth? I'm just trying to understand.
There will be. I imagine, and not everyone has put out their plans, but you will see higher taxes on people who earn $10 million plus there.
So how does that help wages and other issues in the economy?
Well, money going back into the economy, more job creation.
You think the government's going to give up what they withhold in a higher
Well,
bracket?
if it's going through, if you look at the plans that Elizabeth Warren put out, for instance, the money that she is taxing, her billionaire's tax, goes directly to education, to health care. But it ends up being wages because the economy is doing better. People are going to have more money in their pocket if they're not paying as much for health care, especially if there's a Medicare for all option.
You talk about these issues on the radio all the time with people who are doing the thing that Kat and I were talking about, that real kind of person on the ground. Not that billionaires aren't real people, but when you talk about extra taxes on them, what happens if they decide they don't want to do business here? That affects all those people who are calling into the radio station.
I've never talked to a business owner who does not want to hire people, who does not want to raise wages, who does not want to give more money for health insurance. They all want it, but they can't. They literally can't, especially in California, when there's another 12% tax rate, personal tax rate on top of that, and another corporate income tax rate. It's even harder and harder and harder, and more businesses are leaving, and it's just a good microcosm of the country where we're headed.
And one of the facts that's really tough is that wages fell under President Obama, and during that recovery, that was the time when wage growth was really stagnant and people fell further behind because of the structure of the economy, because of the restrictions.
Have we made it up?
And we've made up a lot of it, but this wage growth that's a pittance now is much better than under the last administration, and that's one of the big economic talking points, is that while everybody wants the same outcome, how you get there is different, and by taxing companies and taxing the rich and limiting the economy in that way, you make wages even more stagnant.
Yeah, and I want to slide in a question too, and I know I was joking earlier, billionaires are people too, but they are. Are we vilifying capitalism in this country right now?
Absolutely.
Why is that happening?
It's just the cool hip thing now to vilify capitalism, which is really disgusting because capitalism is the reason why so many people are able to be prosperous and we have freedom in this country and all those sorts of things. But now it's just seen as some evil thing amongst so many people, and socialism is becoming more popular, even though we can see real examples of where, that didn't go so well.
And you gave the facts on what happens when you take those wealth dollars out of the economy.
And how many jobs did Howard Schultz create? I mean, it's worth talking about when you talk about he's a billionaire and he invented that company. It's a lot of jobs.
It will be interesting to see very quickly what happens if Oprah gets in, because she's a billionaire too. And just on the other side.
We'll slide on now. We are waiting to hear from the President of the United States. He's making remarks on border security, the economy, and other topics. We will bring you that as soon as that video from inside the White House is available. I see it snowing in that picture too. Wow. And there's a new report that may shoot down the Democrats' assertion that Donald Trump Jr. spoke to his father in advance of that infamous Trump Tower meeting. Whether this will cool down Democrats' demands that the president's son be investigated. Plus, the raging debate over abortion is engulfing Democrats, whether they just gave Republicans and the president a big political opening.
Every Democrat should have to answer for whether they stand with little baby girls who are born alive surviving an abortion, or whether they stand with Governor Northam's repugnant comments.
Hey, who are you?
Oh, hey, Jeff, I'm a car thief.
What?
I'm here to...
President's remarks now from inside the White House. He's holding a meeting, cabinet level meeting, talking about human trafficking, and that folds right into the discussion about a barrier on our southern border. And in fact, we're starting to get some of the details out. So until we can show you that video, as soon as they wrap up, we'll play that out for you. But for now, here's what we know the president is saying. The Democrats can play their game, but they want to get off that topic as fast as possible. What's immoral is when someone comes into our country and kills innocent victims. If we didn't have a wall in Tijuana, people would be coming in by the tens of thousands. The committee is a waste of time. And of course, the president's already said that's because if their recommendation doesn't include a wall, it's a waste of time. About the cabinet, just so you know, Secretary of DHS Nielsen is saying that horrific ongoing crisis, insidious from a modern day, a form of modern day slavery. Young girls being used as pawns. So she's talking about some of the crisis on our southern border. We will give you the notes as they come to us, but most importantly, we'll give you the words and the video from the President of the United States as we get it. Melissa?
Top White House advisor Kellyanne Conway weighing in on the uproar of remarks by Virginia Governor Ralph Northam about a proposed late-term abortion bill in the Senate. Here is Kellyanne Conway.
And in the case of Virginia, in the words of the governor, that as far as I know he hasn't retracted, the baby's already born. We'll, quote, keep the infant comfortable and then have the mother consult with the physician. Is this America? Is this serious? Is that what it is to be pro-choice now? I think so.
Yesterday, Governor Northam responded to the growing criticism, saying that his comments are being taken out of context.
I regret that those comments have been mischaracterized. The personal insults toward me, I really find disgusting.
Also yesterday, Republican Senator Ben Sasse says he does not believe the remarks are being mischaracterized. Here he is on the Daily Briefing.
The comments that the governor of Virginia said on the radio are about fourth trimester abortion. This is not abortion, this is infanticide, and every Democrat should have to answer for whether they stand with little baby girls who are born alive surviving an abortion, or whether they stand with Governor Northam's repugnant comments. I think the 2020 Democratic presidential candidates should have to answer for this.
Yeah.
And now, Politico is reporting that President Trump is telling conservative allies that he wants to talk about the issue of abortion in his State of the Union address on Tuesday. Liberty University President Jerry Falwell Jr. saying, quote, the legislation in New York and Virginia is really forcing his hand, and he's reacting to people who have just gone off the rails. I don't think he's going to mention it for political reasons because I don't think it will help him much politically. I think he's doing it because he really believes it's important to protect life. Jessica, I wonder if, bringing this political debate back around right now, but starting at such an extreme point of departure when you go back and you listen to actually what the governor said in his own words, that it strikes me as a very extreme position what he's saying, is it not?
Well, it is. Only 13% of Americans support late-term abortion, whereas a majority do support abortion up until the 20-week point.
Well, what he was talking about isn't late-term. I mean, it's after
It is
delivery.
actually. So the clarification that he gave initially, not yesterday's, but the day before, what was going on there is that that was a fetus that was not viable, that would have lived only a couple hours outside of the mother's body. And that's what he was talking about, and that's what the bill addresses. Actually, as Delegate Tran, who was the sponsor, made clear, this bill actually wasn't about extending the number of weeks at which you could have an abortion. It was about lowering the threshold to be able to have one from seeing 3 doctors down to 1 or 2, because that was too burdensome on women. The bill in New York was trying to reverse a 1970 decision that would have let women be punished under the penal code for having an abortion, treacherous territory that the president weighed into during the election campaign. Rhode Island as well. Basically, because there are so many states that are rolling back protections for women to control their own bodies and to also have a right to privacy, like Ohio, Mississippi, and Texas, you have doctors coming from California to perform abortions there because the women do not have access to quality, affordable health care.
I just don't want to run out of time before we let Mike respond.
I'm grateful that in a way, I'm grateful the Democrats are overplaying their hand on this because they're proving the logical end of their principles here. There's this made-up idea of when we should allow abortion or not. What's 24 weeks? What is that? If it's not conception, you're just making stuff up. 24 weeks, 30 weeks, 40 weeks.
Let's
talk about viability because yesterday you had a great back and forth with Mike Huckabee. I have a 2-year-old and a 10-month-old. They can't survive on their own. What is this idea of viability, right? You're always dependent on the mother. You're always dependent on parents, right? No, you roll your eyes on that. Like, my 10-month-old couldn't survive on its own.
There's a difference between a 10-month-old that eats externally versus a fetus in the womb that is connected to an umbilical cord.
But that's not what this is.
Yeah,
but that's not what this is.
We're talking about.
And I want to interject just with the fact of what was going on the radio here.
Yeah.
Appearing to discuss what would happen if a child was born after a failed attempt at abortion, the governor of Virginia, Northam, said, quote, the infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired, and then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So, you know, if the
after it was delivered, it would
This
be
is talking
delivered.
about a
this is
baby that's
after.
already
This
been
is
born.
after.
That's not abortion.
So I
That's
just
killing
want to make
babies.
that point clear so that we're all talking on the same
And
page.
there is never a situation for the health of the mother when aborting the baby inside the womb saves the mother's life. Impossible, has never happened, will never happen, impossible. There's no situation where killing the baby in the womb saves the mother's life.
And I had this discussion with Mike Huckabee, it continued during the break. There are thousands of doctors who would disagree with you about that. Otherwise, no one would be performing
You
abortions.
deliver the baby and try to save the baby's life, which terminates the pregnancy,
You
but
don't
you're not
always deliver the
intentionally
baby.
killing the baby.
all right.
Listen,
I feel like
this is the
everybody-
reason
I think
this
this
issue
is
matters.
such a losing issue for Democrats. Like, as you pointed out, by far most Americans do not think that this is okay.
Yeah, and I hope that, and I'm
Okay.
glad the president's talking about it.
Not to mention the fact that there have been two statements now by the governor of Virginia, Northam, and you know what they say when you're trying to explain what you said clearly and there's documentation, it gets you further and further away from winning that message.
He's a pediatric doctor himself. What the GOP is doing in vilifying him as someone who supports infanticide and that he would be a baby killer seems completely out of step. And I'm not saying this is a popular position, but do you really think that of Governor Northam?
It was his own words. You know, the infant would be delivered and kept comfortable.
That's what-
and then at that point, they're going to decide what to do
That's
with it.
what I wish he would
Just
have.
throw out though, this is a wider discussion. You've got New York, you've got Rhode Island, you've got other states where this is being talked about, and maybe not in the incendiary form that we're discussing happened on the radio, but it's a topic among Democrats.
And we got to go. But I think we'll be discussing this many more times without question. Democrats looking to be facing a growing divide ahead of the 2020 primary on issues like taxes and health care. Some White House hopefuls pushing far-left policies, while others say that's the wrong way to go. The news today, another Democrat, Senator Cory Booker, is jumping into the 2020 race, where he fits into the already crowded field.
is making it official today, announcing that he's throwing his hat into the ring for 2020. It comes amid what appears to be a growing divide among Democrats headed to the primaries. Potential candidates, former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg and Senator Amy Klobuchar, are criticizing a plan by 2020 candidate Kamala Harris to scrap private health insurance. Bloomberg also going after Senator Elizabeth Warren's proposed wealth tax, comparing it to socialism. But Warren doubled down, accusing billionaires of mooching off the system. Watch it.
I want these billionaires to stop being freeloaders. I want them to pick up their fair share. That's how we make a system that works not just for the rich and the powerful, but works for all of us. All I'm asking for is a little slice from the tippy top.
Just yesterday, independent Senator Bernie Sanders rolled out his plan to drastically increase taxes on the very rich. Self-described centrists and also uber wealthy. Former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz, who's considering an independent bid for the White House, pushed back hard and lamented the Democrats' push to the left.
The Democratic Party is moving so far to that position, and that's not where I am. I don't believe there's any room for me as a centrist person who could get the nomination within the party today.
You saw the book on the little table there? Well, outside that book event, people were protesting where Schultz was promoting that book. Democrats have been very vocal in attacking him, fearing he would siphon votes from the Democratic nominee and hand the president in office right now a second term. Mike, as you watch this, and we talked a little bit about vilifying those people who, as Melissa pointed out, how many jobs did the CEO of Starbucks create? Where are we in all this?
Well, so sci-fi writer Robert Heinlein said the natural state of man is poverty. And it's only for the makers, not the moochers, the makers like Mr. Howard Schultz, that we have jobs, that we have industries, that we have growth, that we have prosperity. And when you start attacking those people, then you're going to fall back into a state of poverty, as Kat was talking about, as we see in Venezuela.
Can I ask you, what is the freeloading that Senator Warren is talking about? I mean, I don't understand. When I think of somebody who's freeloading, they're staying at your house and they won't leave after you said, hey, next Tuesday.
Isn't that the worst?
It's the same Obama. It's the same Obama's, you didn't build that. It's the same exact rhetoric that they're pulling out here again. They have to attack Howard Schultz. First of all, he's a white man. So in the world of intersection politics, those are two sins. He's a rich white man. So those are three terrible things.
Oh, wow.
And he's reasonable. And he's like, guys, you can't do these things that cost $4 trillion a year. This doesn't make any sense. So they're going to attack him in silence.
What's interesting is Cory Booker is pretty pro-business too. He's, and he supports things like charter schools. He's a lot more moderate than we've seen the other Democrats who are entering the race. So I'm sure that he'll get hit for those kinds of things. And I think it's quite interesting to think about what this is going to look like. Are they going to go with somebody super, super progressive like Elizabeth Warren, or are they going to go with somebody less progressive like Cory Booker?
What's interesting about that, Melissa, is remember Cory Booker, where he came from in Newark, New Jersey. He would need to do that in order to get things done. And you're lifting people out of, different economic low economic periods and trying to lift them up. I mean, you're right. His background might not be in sync with where this party's going.
Pretty moderate.
It kind of goes back to your basic philosophy of how do we get there. And it's interesting. It's something Jessica said earlier on. Do you think that government creates jobs and creates wealth and is the answer? Or do you think that people and industry and we're responsible for ourselves? Is government the solution, or is government oftentimes the problem? And, like when you said give money, the government taxes and then creates jobs, that's antithetical to what so many of us believe. But I understand that that's what Democrats believe. And we think people like Howard Schultz and Steve Jobs and all these people who have become billionaires, and Howard Schultz, in his case, from nowhere, have created all these jobs, that is the heart of America, and that's what we stand for.
All right, I want to come to you, Jessica, but I want us to all watch Representative Omar on raising taxes.
We could increase the taxes that people are paying who are the extremely wealthy in our community. So 70%, 80%, we've had it as high as 90%. The other thing that we can do is we can tax corporations. 1% must pay their fair share.
So we've seen others, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, saying these similar things. I mean, is this where your party's going? 70, 80, 90% on
of a marginal tax rate on people earning over $10 million a year. I think a lot of people are hewing to that point, and I would add there's a pretty popular far-left progressive who's also a white man, and he has some money too, Bernie Sanders. So it's not just that Howard Schultz's crime is being of that demographic. Joe Biden as well, who I think will have a big influence on the race if he gets in there. There's no question that hewing to the left is the way to go in the primary. You saw Hillary Clinton get pushed there as well by Bernie Sanders, and then she came back more or less to the more moderate position for the general election, though it didn't pan out as I would have liked. I think the most interesting thing happening right now is about health insurance and what happened with Kamala Harris saying that she would eliminate private insurance.
That's not.
That almost, it's a bad idea, and it almost seemed like she misspoke in saying it.
She said, I feel very strongly about this.
She said she feels very strongly. There's nothing, there would be no private insurance if there's Medicare for all, right? And she did say she supports Medicare for all. That would mean no more private insurance.
For all, actually, and that would turn out. It would be Medicaid for all. It wouldn't be Medicare for all.
A poll last week found that only 37% of people support Medicare for all once they're informed and realize that that would mean the end of private insurance.
Yep.
And in countries like England, they have both.
We are tight to space today, so sometimes we may kind of cut in at each other because we're waiting to see the president in the White House. So I know if you're watching, you're wondering what's going on. That's happening. New developments in the infamous Trump Tower meeting during the 2016 campaign. The mystery over blocked phone calls involving Donald Trump Jr. has possibly been solved. And if the reports are true, this could be a big setback for Democrats' allegations that President Trump knew of that meeting beforehand. Details next.
Sometimes you just know when you've hit a
A central mystery in the 2016 Trump Tower meeting may have been solved. There are now reports that investigators on the Senate Intel Committee have learned details of at least 2 calls Donald Trump Jr. got from blocked numbers before and after that meeting with a Russian lawyer. Those calls have long fueled speculation that they were from Don Jr.'s then candidate father. But according to those reports, those calls didn't involve the president. He tweeted, quote, "Just out, the big deal, very mysterious Don Jr. telephone calls after the innocent Trump Tower meeting that the media and Dems said were made to his father, me, were just conclusively found to not be made to me. They were made to friends and business associates of Don. Really sad." House Intel Chair Adam Schiff has expressed interest in issuing subpoenas to Donald Jr. and the Trump Organization for more detailed records on the Trump Tower meeting. Don Jr. calling out Schiff, tweeting, "Has anyone heard from Adam Schiff? I imagine he's busy leaking other confidential info from the House Intelligence Committee to change the subject. Hashtag full of Schiff." But Schiff says he is not dropping the investigation because Republicans won't hand over the phone records. Ken, I'm going to go to you.
It was such an obvious investigative step and is an obvious investigative step, and one that we will take very early on now that we are underway, and that is find out who Don Jr. was talking to about that meeting at Trump Tower. Those conversations could have taken place over the phone, or they could have taken place by Don Jr. walking down the hall to talk to Dad.
I love Jessica reading as President Trump. That's what I was laughing at. When you do the tweets, it's just, it is my jam.
I like
Anyway,
to
go
give
ahead.
him
You're
millennial vocal fry.
Yeah.
Big deal, small deal, doesn't matter that the calls weren't to Dad?
I think if the calls were to Dad, that would have been a very big deal, right? Because it's one thing for him to have taken this meeting, which I think we can all agree, not the smartest move that Don Jr.'s ever made, right? But it's one thing for him to have taken the meeting and another thing for him to have taken it on behalf of his father, of course. And if it had been that he was talking to his father, then I think that Democrats would be talking about that a lot, as they definitely should be. But it's surprising to me that he wasn't, because I'm someone who tells my dad everything, right? Like if a boy I like doesn't text me back, my dad's getting a phone call. So I would probably...
Let alone if you were getting some Russian
If I was getting some Russian, opposition info, then my dad would definitely be getting a phone call. But it looks like this was not the case here. And I think that this, I don't know if it completely vindicates everything the way that the president is saying that it is, but it's definitely a plus side for Trump.
So I saw Melissa today came up again that Steve Bannon about a year ago had said, oh, he wouldn't have called, he would have just walked upstairs. So do you think Democrats now, or I take in the elevator, I don't know if you use the stairs in Trump Tower, I haven't been invited, but do you think that
you can shop there anytime?
Yeah.
It's okay. Do you think this matters in the context of the narrative, or we just have to wait for the Mueller report? And
I mean, it's all so deep down in the weeds. Yeah. I mean, I think the American people are so much more focused on what their family's doing and even who's going to win the Super Bowl. I mean, it just is, it's gone on for so long.
Yes, thank you, Melissa.
Without the evidence of what we saw, before you speak, I just want to throw this out there. So, Kat, you said, well, how does this all fit in? Newsweek writes, Democrats have claimed Trump Jr.'s meeting at Trump Tower was the epicenter of Russia collusion in the 2016 presidential campaign.
What was the genesis of this whole thing? On your point, Melissa, what was the genesis? The accusation was that Donald Trump was colluding with the Kremlin to steal the election from Hillary Clinton. Give me some evidence of that.
So what do you do if the
so
so-called epicenter is wiped away, Mike? Or at least challenged by the facts?
Until the what? I'm sorry?
Until the so-called, as they write, epicenter of the theory about Russia collusion with the campaign. What do you do when that's at least challenged by the facts?
I don't even, give me, what's a fact? Is there a fact?
Well, the fact is that it wasn't the two of them talking. It was Don Jr. talking to 2 other people, not his dad.
I don't know.
Well, I think then Adam Schiff will still want those phone records, and he will want to talk to the people that Don Jr. did call and say, we have a Kremlin-backed lawyer coming in to chat to us about opposition research/adoptions. I think that's where we go from there, but we actually have to leave this discussion. The president says they're all good. His show of unity with America's intel chiefs amid speculation of a rift. Whether the media blew this out of proportion, we'll talk about it next.
All right, I brought in Ensure.
President Trump saying media coverage is to blame for an apparent rift between him and intelligence agency leaders following their congressional testimony this week about global threats. The president yesterday tweeting a photo of his Oval Office meeting with intel leaders and writing, quote, "Just concluded a great meeting with my intel team in the Oval Office who told me that what they said on Tuesday at the Senate hearing was mischaracterized by the media. And we are very much in agreement on Iran, ISIS, North Korea, etc. Their testimony was distorted press." All right. What do you, Jessica, I heard you sighing loudly during that
Well, it was on tape. I mean, it can't be distorted if you're just watching it. So the media didn't distort it. There was a rift. He goes out all the time and says things that contradict what the Intelligence Committee says. His base likes it, and that's just the kind of way we live here. So no one, he could just say, we're on the same page and not have to bring up some media distortion part of it, because DNI Coates was very clear that they assess the threats differently than the president does. They don't think ISIS is defeated. They think Iran is complying with the deal. They think North Korea isn't denuclearizing, and he's running a different show.
What do you think about the intelligence chief staying on with the president, not quitting and staying with him and meeting with him and continuing to serve?
Oh, I think that they absolutely should. I mean, you're serving your country, right? And presidents come and go, and it's not about political affiliation. And, you know, I hope he is reading those briefings and taking them to heart. But, you know, when we watch something, it happened.
Melissa, some Democrats are coming out and saying, though, that the relationship between President Trump and the intelligence community, it accounts to a national security threat. What do you think about comments like those?
I mean, when you go hyperbolic, it undermines your whole entire argument. So while, you know, when the president says that, you know, we can get out of Syria and everything's fine and ISIS is defeated, there are, you know, a lot of people that would disagree with him on that front, and a lot of people that, you know, he trusts. And I think that in fairness, you know, he's listened to those arguments and responded, and he's even changed his mind on things based on the advice that he's given. And you know, that makes sense. I can understand people in the intel community being frustrated. I think when he goes out and makes a statement or he makes an announcement on Twitter and they're frustrated that they disagree and didn't hear about it first and that sort of thing. But it doesn't amount to a national security crisis. And when you say that, all of a sudden everybody rolls their eyes and kind of leaves the conversation.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. When you say something like that, people say, oh, they're saying Trump's going to end the world again. All right, world's still been here every time that they've said that, so I think that we're good. Do you think that the relationship between the intel community and President Trump is an issue, or do you think it's fine how it is?
I mean, you want that to be as close as possible. I like your point, though. It seems like the president has changed some issues, changed his decisions on some things, so I think he's receiving some input well, and let's pray he continues to do that.
I do. To Chuck, because it was Chuck Schumer who said he was calling for an intervention, which I don't know what that looks like between the intelligence community and the president. I think it's kind of like go big in the primaries, right? Like say the most extreme thing, hoping that we're going to get to the 50% line, and maybe that tweet, at least half of it, was getting there, right? That he's saying, no, we're on the same page, calm down, we're not getting out of Syria, we will still talk to allies, NATO, whatever.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Thanks for having me, ladies.
Guess what? We got more outnumbered. More in just a moment.
What? Yeah. Perfect. Even better.
Megan's smile is getting a lot of attention. That's because she goes beyond brushing with ACT mouthwash. ACT freshens breath and strengthens enamel, protects teeth from harmful acids, and helps prevent cavities. Protect your smile every day. Go beyond brushing with ACT.
Jen and I are obviously a bit behind converting the den into a nursery.
Hey, I know a good contractor who could probably help you guys out.
Can you verify their credentials, check their customer reviews, give us some additional quotes? Oh, and our...
You can't expect your neighbors to do everything HomeAdvisor can. So just ask HomeAdvisor.
For those who are driven by purpose, who are building others instead of just wealth, giving back and never giving up. TIAA will help you live your definition of success. Whether you have $500 or $5 million. Investing, advice, banking, retirement. TIAA. Start today at TIAA.org.
If your family is anything like this, you need quality floors from Empire Today. Like durable carpet with built-in stain and pet protection. Tough wood laminate with a scratch-resistant finish. Or waterproof vinyl plank floors. Even bath time is no match. And when life happens, Empire backs every floor with great warranties. Quality floors you can count on. That's Empire Today.
800-588-2300 Today. The word education means to lead forth. But which way is forth? How do you know you're going?
Mike Slater, was your first time on the couch. What did you think? How'd it go?
Outnumbered and outmatched by you ladies.
Okay, we love it.
Thorn between roses. I love you. Thank you.
Have a great weekend. Thank you to Mike Slater. We are back here on the couch on Monday. Now, here's Harris.
And we have breaking news awaiting remarks from President Trump just 2 weeks away from another government shutdown, possibly outnumbered overtime. Now, I'm Harris Faulkner. We're inside a 2-minute warning. So I want to get straight to our John Roberts there, our chief White House correspondent, because, John, you were in there as the president was speaking. We're awaiting the video. John?
I was. He was in the cabinet room with members of the Homeland Security Department talking mostly about human trafficking, but at the end, we asked him a number of questions on the wall and about whether or not he would declare a national emergency. He does seem to be going down the road toward this idea of a national emergency. He said that he would have more to say about it at the State of the Union address in this crisis on the border. He feels that the conference committee is going nowhere, that the Democrats have decided politically they don't want to put in any money for a wall because they want to make this about 2020, not about the immediate problems on the southern border, Harris. A lot that the president had to say over the course of about 40 minutes.
All right. We're told we're about 45 seconds away. You know, the one thing that this president does is take the mantle on marketing when there are big issues, and he seems to be doing that now, kind of flooding the zone. We've heard a lot from him on the wall in just the last 48 hours. Real quick.
We certainly have. Now, again, the president was really focused here on human trafficking and the scourge of it. He acknowledged that the wall by itself wouldn't do much to stop these Central American migrants from coming in, but it's really cross-border criminal traffic that he wants to try to avoid here.
Forgive me, because we're just a few seconds away from the president of the United States. Let's watch.
Strengthen up our southern border. That should have been done 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. And now you have problems even with, I understand yesterday, even people from Venezuela want to come through. Everybody wants to come through. Part of it is the success of our country, but we're going to keep our country successful. And we want people to come in. So important to say. We need people. We have a lot of companies moving in. A lot of companies are moving back into the United States that never thought they'd be moving back, and we need people. You see that with the jobs numbers. We really need people. But it has to be through a legal process and a process of really of merit. But we do want people coming into our country. They have to come in legally. I just want to thank everybody for being here. What you go through is incredible, and the job you do is incredible. Few people could do what you do. And we want to try and make it easier for you, or another way you could this way handle more of the incredible work, because no matter what we do, it's not going to stop, but we can reduce it incredibly by tremendous numbers. So I just want to thank everybody for being here, and we're very proud of you, very proud of the job you do. Thank you very much, and Madam Secretary, thank you very much. Really great.
Mr. President?
Yeah, please.
Mr. President?
Why not just go ahead and do the national emergency now if the
Well, we're building the
committee
wall
is
now.
not-
Yeah, we're building the wall. People don't understand that. They're starting to learn. We're spending a lot of money that we have on hand. It's like in a business, but we have money on hand, and we're building, I would say we will have 115 miles of wall, maybe a little bit more than that very shortly. It's being built. Some of it's already been completed, and in San Diego, if you look, it's been completed. It's really beautiful, brand new. We have other wall that's under construction, and we're giving out a lot of contracts. So we're building the wall. It's getting built one way or the other.
Is there another option besides the national emergency?
We are doing things right now. I mean, we're building it with funds that are on hand. We're negotiating very tough prices. We've designed a much better looking wall that is also actually a better wall, which is an interesting combination. It's far more beautiful, and it's better. It's much more protective. But it looks better because the walls that they used to build were not very attractive. I actually think that's possibly part of the problem. But the real problem is we need something. We have to have a very strong barrier. But we're building a lot of wall right now as we speak, and we're renovating a lot of wall. And we're getting ready to give out some very big contracts with money that we have on hand and money that comes in. But we will be looking at a national emergency because I don't think anything's going to happen. I think the Democrats don't want border security. And when I hear them talking about the fact that walls are immoral and walls don't work, they know they work. I watched somebody being interviewed the other day by a very good anchor. And the anchor actually was getting angrier and angrier as they tried to explain how a wall doesn't really have that much of an impact, and yet thousands of people are on one side of the wall and nobody's on the other side of the wall. It was actually laughable and really horrible in the same breath. So that's the way it is. You know, if you look at El Paso, if you look at certain places, but El Paso was one of the most dangerous cities in the whole country. Once the wall was completed, it became one of the safest immediately. It wasn't like it took 5 years. Some of you know this. Immediately, it became one of the safest cities in the whole country. So we're building the wall. A lot of it is, I mean, the chant now should be finish the wall as opposed to build the wall, because we're building a lot of wall. And I started this 6 months ago. We really started going to town because I could see we're getting nowhere with the Democrats. We're not going to get anywhere with them. It's going to be a part of their campaign, but I don't think it's good politically. And I think Nancy Pelosi should be ashamed of herself because she's hurting a lot of people. I think the Democrats should be ashamed of themselves. Now, in all fairness to the Democrats, many of them want the wall, and I see it. They're just dying to say what they want to say, but they can't say it as well as they would be able to if they were allowed to do it. Yes?
Mr. President, so are you saying now you believe that on February the 15th, the only option you will have left is either close down the government or declare an emergency because you don't have any faith that this committee will come up with an answer? And if you do declare an emergency, are you concerned that you will almost be immediately be enjoined by some court in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals District?
Well, we have very, very strong legal standing. It would be very hard to do that, but they tend to go to the Ninth Circuit, and when they go to the Ninth Circuit, things happen. For instance, the ban, it missed and then was approved in the United States Supreme Court, where we have had a very good record. They go to the Ninth Circuit. In many cases, and in fact, in most cases, it has nothing to do with the Ninth Circuit. It's a shame what they do. So let's see what happens. I can only tell you this, John, we have very, very strong legal standing to win. We are doing it regardless. I mean, we haven't declared the national emergency yet, and yet we're building a lot of wall. We're continuing to build a lot of wall with, as we would say in business, cash on hand. And we're negotiating tough prices. We have a great system, a great wall system. It's very uniform. They used to have all these different systems. Nobody knew what was going on. We have a very good, solid system that looks good and is very powerful as a wall.
But are you saying now you expect to declare a national
I don't want to say, but you'll hear the State of the Union, and then you'll see what happens right after the State of the Union, okay?
Well, are you going to wait until February 15th to do
Yeah,
this?
we're building now. I mean, the one thing that I'm trying to stress to people, and I wasn't before because before it meant less, but when I see the obstruction, when I see the tremendous obstruction by Democrats, knowing that the only saving of our southern border is the wall. I mean, you look at these towns, before the wall they were crime-ridden, and now the wall gets built. We put up a wall in a certain area, and all of a sudden it went from being a horrible hellhole into something that's really safe. They can't even believe it. The mayors can't even believe it. If you ever took some of the walls down in California, for instance, one story in San Diego, they were begging us to build the wall. I mean, they were putting pressure on us, that area of San Diego, where people were rampant going through. And you'd have a lot of security, but the security can only do so much. When, as an example, when you have these caravans that are going to be hitting, we've done a great job with the caravans, an incredible job. And most of them have gone back where they're staying on the other side of a wall. They haven't been coming in for the most part. But we've done a great job. We don't have the ammunition because we don't have the barrier. But it's been really amazing to see the difference when you have it and when you don't. It's incredible to see the difference of an area on the other side of a barrier. So, you know, the old expression, walls work whether you like it or not. In Israel, they have a wall, and it is 99.9% successful. And ours are too. When we have it, we're going to be starting in a certain way. We have a few areas that we're starting where they catch up. Once you have the holes in the middle, they just spread, sort of like water, they just spread in, but you have to have it. So when you talk about the committee, I can tell you the Republicans want to have a wall, but the Democrats are told that you can't do that. They are doing a tremendous disservice. The Democrats are doing a tremendous disservice to our country. You heard today about human trafficking. Human trafficking can go down by a tremendous percentage if we had a wall on our southern border. Tremendous. Because it's very hard to do human trafficking through ports of entry, because you have people standing there looking and they say, hey, what's going on in the back seat? What's going on in the trunk? They check these things. So they come in through areas where you don't have the barriers. And we're not going to let that happen. So we're building a lot of it. We'll be up to about 115 miles of wall, some renovated, some new. And we're going to make a big step in the next week or so prior to my doing anything. But actually having a national emergency does help the process. It would certainly help the process. What would help a lot would be if the Democrats could actually be honest and approve. They're not being honest. Everybody knows they're not being honest. They know they're not being honest. I'd like to hear what they talk about in their rooms when they go back. And I tell you what, a lot of pressure is being put on by Democrats, being put on their leadership. Tremendous pressure is being put on because they cannot justify not having a barrier between our country and Mexico. Mexico just came out yesterday, numbers were just released. 38,000 people were murdered in Mexico, up like an incredible amount, 30% or something from the year before. 38,000 people were murdered in Mexico. It's one of the most, unfortunately, unsafe countries in the world. We need a protective barrier for our country. And that doesn't include Honduras, who we are not happy with, and we're looking very seriously at taking away all funding. And same thing for Guatemala, and the same thing for El Salvador. It's a disgrace what's going on in those countries. For years and years, the United States has paid them hundreds of millions of dollars, and they do nothing for us. When a caravan starts in the middle of Honduras, obviously they're allowing it to start. And they want it to start because they want to not have certain people in their country. So what do? They put them in the caravan. And we've had tremendous numbers of criminals that we've caught in the caravans before they get here. So the committee is, I know the Republicans want to do something, and I'm not saying it because I'm a Republican. I'm saying the Democrats are instructed, don't do a wall. And they're only doing that. You hear about human trafficking, drugs, gangs, crime. They're only doing it for one very simple reason. It's one simple reason. Couldn't be simpler, because they think it's good politics for 2020. Because they say, maybe we can beat Trump. because this is a big issue. Now, I've done a lot of other issues. I've done military where our military is in great shape now. It's strong and ready. It was totally depleted when I got here. Regulation cuts, tax cuts. I mean, we've done more than any other president has ever done in the first 2 years of his presidency. But the wall is a big factor, and they want to use the wall for politics. So it's not going to work because we're building the wall, and it's under construction. Yes.
Mr. President, have you privately decided whether or not you will declare a national emergency? And just to clarify...
Have I privately, what's in my mind?
What's in your
Well,
mind?
certainly thinking about it.
You're thinking ahead.
I think there's a good chance that we'll have to do that. But we will, at the same time, be building, regardless, we're building wall, and we're building a lot of wall, but I could do it a lot faster the other way.
Are you saying that we should be prepared for you to announce at the State of the Union what you are going to do?
Well, I'm saying listen closely to the State of the Union. I think you'll find it very exciting.
Can I get a Venezuelan question real quick?
Yeah.
Are you willing to commit U.S. military, if necessary, to force Montenegro's...
No, I don't want to say that, but it's always an option. Everything's an option. I take no options off the table. Okay? Thank you.
Mr. President, are you thinking of adding on a meeting with Xi Jinping on the back end or the front end?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I mean, some of you were there yesterday. We had an incredible meeting yesterday with the Vice Premier of China, a very powerful man, highly respected, very strong, very respected also by the President, President Xi. And we had an amazing meeting on trade, mostly on trade, actually also on fentanyl. China's agreed to criminalize fentanyl. That's going to have a huge impact on fentanyl coming into the country. But there is a possibility we'll meet somewhere, whether it's there. I'm over in a certain location. I'll be over in a certain location there, as you know.
So you might do it too?
That'll be announced officially probably next week. So
you might do it too?
It could happen. It could happen.
Sounds like Da Nang for that summit, sir. Is that a good guess?
Gee, Da Nang. Who does Da Nang remind me of, huh? Certain senator. It's a certain senator that said he was a war hero when he wasn't. He never saw Da Nang.
Have you found the money to build the wall, even if you do have to?
Well, we have a lot of money, and that's why we're building it. I mean, we have a lot of money. Don't forget, we had $1.6 billion approved. Then we had another $1.6 billion approved. Now, in theory, we have $1.3 billion approved. But we're renovating a lot of walls that were basically dilapidated. In some cases, it's called a renovation, but it's really much more. It's wall that is in such bad shape that we take it down and we build new wall in certain very important areas. But we're doing a combination of renovation and new wall. But we're doing a lot of it.
Mr. President, do you need an appropriation from Congress or a national emergency to build all the wall you think is necessary?
We're already appropriated. We have a lot of appropriation. It's already been done. And certain other things we'll be doing that we haven't done yet. And one of the things we're considering, obviously, is a national emergency. And it's an invasion of our country of not only people, not only gangs and criminals and human traffickers, it's an invasion of drugs into our country. It's an invasion like you've never seen before. You talk about heroin. 90% of the heroin coming into our country comes in through the southern border. We can stop so much of that. And I'll tell you this. If we build a proper barrier with all of the technology, which only really works with the barrier, but if we build a proper barrier with great technology too, we will see crime throughout the United States go down in percentages that we've never seen before. It'll be an amazing thing because so much of it comes through the southern border.
Mr. President, can you tell us some of the themes that are important to you in the State of the Union speech?
I think most of the themes you would know. It's economic development, it's success. No country has had the success that we've had over the last 2 years. And I will say this, if the other party got into office, instead of being up and having these phenomenal 304,000 jobs added, and we had so many great months, and it's been a little bit tricky because I'm in the middle of some very big trade deals, which is disruptive before you make it. But after you make it, those deals are much better than they were before. I don't even mean much better. I mean better like nobody's ever seen before. That includes a deal, if we make the deal with China, you're talking about, it'll be a different world for us. We lost $500 billion a year with China for many years. 500 billion, not million, 500 billion. We're not going to do that anymore. And our relationship with China is extraordinary. My relationship with President Xi is better, I guarantee, than any relationship of a president and a president. There's not even close. But it can't go on this way. We can't allow this to happen. And if you notice yesterday, and I think it was a big story, or it should have been, but China, as a sign of goodwill, has agreed to purchase a tremendous, massive amount of soybeans and other agricultural product. Our farmers this morning are very happy. I spoke to Sonny Perdue, Secretary of Agriculture. He called me this morning. Our farmers are extremely happy.
Mr. President, in Texas, where you're wanting to build about 168 miles of wall, you can't build the wall right on the border. You've got to build it off the floodplain.
Right.
So you may slow down human traffickers, you may slow down drug runners, you may slow down people who don't want to get caught. But for all these tens of thousands of Central American migrants who just want to touch foot on U.S. soil and wait for the Border Patrol to pick them up, how does building a new wall solve that problem?
Well, we're going to solve the problem, and we're also working on different things because there's so many loopholes. You're right. Touch the land, all of a sudden it's a catch and release deal. They go into the country, and in some cases, if they're criminals, they're released into our country. It's a ridiculous thing. It's a loophole. And if you look at the visa lottery, and if you look at all of these other chain migration, we have to fix all of it, John. It's very important. The wall is the most important thing by far, but we have to fix the loopholes. You're 100% right. Okay, yeah, please.
Nancy Pelosi says you're risking an arms race with Russia today. What's your answer?
Say it again?
Nancy Pelosi says you're risking a new arms race with Russia. What's your answer?
Honestly, I don't think she has a clue. I really don't. I don't think Nancy has a clue. And I see that when she says walls are immoral. She doesn't have, she doesn't know. And I wish she did, because she's hurting this country so badly. It's all rhetorical, not delivered well, but it's all rhetorical. She's hurting our country very, very badly, even with statements like that. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Let's keep moving. Let's go. All right, guys, let's go. Move. Let's go. John, let's go.
Please listen to
Go ahead, Jim.
Pulling out of the IMF, is this as much about the threat in the Western Pacific from China as it the emerging threat from China?
No, the reason is, first of all, you have to add countries, obviously, it's old. But very importantly, one side has not been adhering to it. We have, but one side hasn't. So unless they're going to adhere, we shouldn't be the only one. I hope that we're able to get everybody in a very big and beautiful room and do a new treaty that would be much better. But, because certainly I would like to see that. But you have to have everybody adhere to it. And you have a certain side that almost pretends it doesn't exist. Pretty much pretends it doesn't exist. So unless we're going to have something that we all agree to, we can't be put at the disadvantage of going by a treaty, limiting what we do when somebody else doesn't go by that treaty. Okay? Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody.
So the last part of that on foreign policy with regard to a treaty with Russia, but the bulk of what we heard in this Q&A portion of a very long meeting inside the White House with the president and cabinet members today was about the wall. And that bipartisan committee that is negotiating, or at least trying to, a deal that the president would sign. Word out of that committee recently that they did not have the wall in it. He says there are other parts we want to focus on, but the wall is most important. We have to fix things like catch and release and the loopholes that exist, but the wall is most important. You're watching Outnumbered Overtime. I'm Harris Faulkner, the president speaking there for about 16 or 17 minutes. And let's break it down. I want to bring in a member of that bipartisan committee on border security, Republican Congressman Chuck Fleischmann of Tennessee. Congressman, I have to say, why is this even necessary from the president? This sounds like not only is he still thinking strongly about an emergency nationally, but it might not be going well inside that committee. What's happening?
Well, I understand the president's frustration, and let's face it, he is right. We are actually constructing a wall in this country. This is for additional wall. So I think he's being very factual and very honest with the American people. But let me say this. The reference to the fact that there is no wall money in the committee is wrong. The Democrats on the committee have a proposed draft allegedly basically not providing for wall funding. But that's not our position. The Republicans want wall funding, whether it be Senate Republicans or House Republicans.
All right.
And I believe that many Democrats would actually allow wall funding if Nancy Pelosi would let them negotiate the way that the committee is designed to negotiate.
Okay. That just blew my mind because I believe, and we know that the president was saying Democrats with no wall funding. No one's accusing Republicans of not having any. But unless I am wrong about this, you guys have to reach a deal. So even if all of you want wall funding and the Democrats don't, you're at an impasse here. And oh, by the way, is this an independent group of people, Congressman Fleischman, or are they still taking orders from Nancy Pelosi, somebody not in the room, somebody who has a wall in her state and has indicated no, she wouldn't tear that down? Is that who they're listening to?
Well, unfortunately, I can't speak for the Democrats. I know
you're in the
Speaker
room. Is that
Pelosi
what they're saying?
has spoken. Well, they're in the room, but they're not saying that. We had a meeting the other day that was very cordial, very forthright. We heard from our friends on both sides of the aisle and in both chambers. And let me say this. In deference to our great leadership, Leader McCarthy has given us tremendous autonomy in terms of talking about this. I am independent to advocate for wall funding. I'm independent in terms of my negotiation. So I applaud Kevin McCarthy for the way that he's allowed this committee to work its will. I am imploring Nancy Pelosi, let this committee work its will. We will get this done. We are appropriators. We can settle this issue in 15 minutes if we were allowed to do it.
All right, let's hear from the president on Nancy Pelosi from moments ago.
Honestly, I don't think she has a clue. I really don't. I don't think Nancy has a clue. And I see that when she says walls are immoral. She doesn't have, she doesn't know. And I wish she did, because she's hurting this country so badly.
She's weighing in. I've been asking all week what chilling effect that might have on negotiations when you tell me, Congressman Fleischman, that there are some Democrats who might join you with some border funding. Clearly, they can see it works in 600 miles of places, so that makes sense. If the president has to do this with a national emergency, are the waters changing politically to help him get that done without much challenge? What do you think?
Well, I'm going to continue to believe in the process. We have this Joint Select Committee, which we've used these committees before. This is constitutionally designed, Harris, to work the way that our founding fathers wanted it to work. What I mean by that is the Senate and House sit down, work out an agreement, and then it goes to the White House. That's very fundamentally important to our government, to our great republic. Unfortunately, when leadership gets involved in a detrimental way, and I have to respectfully call out Speaker Pelosi, her rhetoric is counterproductive to letting this work. Now, I will say this. She showed today that she is willing to let a vote come out on the House floor if the committee does come up with a product. I think this is showing that she's perhaps retreating from her untenable position that she had earlier. So bear this in mind so the American people know. If Republicans and Democrats in that room, and I'm one of them, can work our will, get a product that works, it will go to both chambers for a vote. So if we can get a compromise, something that builds the wall, keeps America safe, we can get a vote on the House floor.
Congressman, I've got to scoot, and I know you do too. You got 14 days from today. You're facing another partial government shutdown, potentially, if not only a national crisis. Can you get it done?
Yes, ma'am. I'm the eternal optimist. I want to be America's cheerleader. The American people are watching us. I am always a can-do person. I believe our president is a can-do president. Let's get down to work, try to get this done, and then we'll move this country forward.
Well, the president is bringing his pulpit, his bully pulpit from the White House. He is flooding the zone with his messaging. We'll see if that gets anything and puts pressure on this to get it done, too. I like your optimism. Congressman Fleischman of the great state of Tennessee, thank you for your time.
Yes, ma'am.
If the other party got into office, instead of being up and having these phenomenal 304,000 jobs added, and we had so many great months, and you know, it's been a little bit tricky because I'm in the middle of some very big trade deals, which is disruptive before you make it. But after you make it, those deals are much better than they were before. I don't even mean much better. I mean better like nobody's ever seen before.
We are rolling here. The President Trump reacting to today's strong jobs report. Employers adding 304,000 non-farm jobs today, announced about last month, despite the 35-day partial government shutdown. But the unemployment rate did rise ever so slightly to 4%. Fox Business Network Susan Lee joins me now. And that might be because you had more people filing for it because you had 800,000 people not getting their paychecks.
Yeah.
But I want to hear from you.
Okay, well, the unemployment rate, yes, it did tick up, but that's because more people are jumping into the jobs market.
That's a positive.
Yeah, they're confident they're going to find a job. So, yes, I would call this blowout in January. Twice economists forecast 100th month of job creation, longest expansion on record. Wages went up. And, oh, by the way, that was despite a 35-day government shutdown.
So the president's spending some time today, not just on jobs, but the total economy.
Yeah.
Give me a temperature now. Can we pop up for our audience the Dow, too, because the Dow is healthy today.
Yeah, stock markets are on fire. I know we had 401k jitters in December. People were really concerned about what happens to retirement savings.
Well, it was more than jitters.
Yeah, especially when you're 20% down. I get it. But in January, we're looking at the best January in 30 years and best month since 2015. So you've made half of that back already. And there is a lot of positives in the economy. A lot of the stocks that have done well in January are the financial shares and the small caps. Why? Because they believe in domestic growth right here in the U.S.
All right, we're getting into selling season for houses, too. And so having the Fed back off, ticking up those interest rates, I would imagine, too. I watch you. That's what makes me so smart.
Thank you so much.
Let's talk about this. President Trump said in that cabinet room just moments ago what we showed everybody. He's considering a meeting with China's president when he travels later this month to meet with Kim Jong-un.
I believe it. So that's probably a smart, probably efficient way to travel as well. So I think he's probably going to go to China, try to negotiate that trade deal. That looks so positive.
Why do you say it looks so positive?
Because, okay, March 1st, that deadline is coming up hard and fast. China's economy, slowest growth that we've seen in 28 years.
What happens on March 1st?
On March 1st, well, basically the tariffs go up 25% on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods.
That's
and
pressure.
the pressure that they have on the economy right now, not good for China. They want a deal.
All right. Susan Lee from the Fox Business Network.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Thank you. A new report that appears to undermine a key part of the allegation that Donald Trump Jr. lied to Congress. Whether this will cool Democrats' demands that the president's son be investigated. A top House Democrat joins me next. I'll ask him. campaign. If this was the epicenter, and it is now frustrated and challenged by the fact that perhaps the president, then candidate, didn't know anything about this meeting that was going on, and all that they have said about it is true, where does this put Democrats?
Well, first, I don't think it, of course, was the epicenter of the investigation. I think, as Adam Schiff just said, this was a natural point of inquiry to know who Donald Trump Jr. spoke with after that meeting. And the only reason that we didn't know who it was because the Republicans on the Intelligence Committee refused to issue a subpoena. But what is really important in this investigation is, what did the president know? When did he know it? And what we know, and the facts that we do know, are that there was a Trump Tower meeting. We know from the emails of Donald Trump Jr. it was about dirt on Hillary Clinton. We know that they lied about it, and the president participated in issuing a statement saying it was about Russian adoption. We also know, while Donald Trump Jr. is negotiating the terms of that meeting, the president says, as a candidate, I have big news about Hillary Clinton that I'll announce on Monday, which of course never happens when dirt is produced. So there's a lot of data points that suggest maybe the president had some knowledge of what this meeting was about. We don't know that until the report is done, but
Exactly.
I don't think everyone should celebrate that this one data point ends the inquiry.
Well, when you consider what Democrats have said and how the veins of this, if you will, have kind of sprouted from the fact that it looked like the president was telling the Sun what to do and they must have talked on the phone. When you take that away with sheer evidence, you need evidence of some of those things that you said. That there was a Tower meeting might have been corroborated by like a security guard. That wasn't too hard. But the rest of what you're saying, we're still waiting to see a lot of the facts come out. Here is House Oversight Chair Trey Gowdy. I want you to hear what Chairman Gowdy, former Chairman Gowdy, has to say about this. Watch.
It's the biggest distinction between what I call serious investigations and political investigations where you speculate rampantly. The first thing I wanted to do was call Richard Burr, who's the chairman of the Senate Intel Committee, and thank him for running a serious investigation where they actually figure out the facts before they make allegations, because sometimes some folks do it in the reverse order. They make these wild allegations.
Can I ask you a question? If it turns out through Robert Mueller's investigation, I mean, it seems like a whole lot of people all over the place, even the man now nominated to be the Attorney General, William Barr, picked by the president, has a friendship relationship, professional relationship with Robert Mueller. If it turns out that there is no there in terms of that Russia collusion accusation, will Democrats like yourself move on?
Look, I think we will, of course, read Mr. Mueller's report carefully. We'll do oversight. But I think if there is nothing in Mr. Mueller's report that warrants proceeding with removal of the president, we obviously won't do it. But we need to wait for that report. We will continue to, of course, have oversight responsibilities. But I would just push back respectfully, Harris, on the notion that this is a central piece of the investigation. There are still many questions about...
I read you Newsweek's
well, you said it was
report. I read you Newsweek's report.
Because I would just say there are 101 contacts between the Trump campaign and Russian operatives, 15 blanket denials, which have all proved to be untrue. And so there's a lot of reason to question about what was the relationship between the Trump campaign and the Russians, a lot of data points. We need to await Mr. Mueller's report to see how those are put together and take whatever action it requires.
So you don't think this is that big of a deal? That for months Democrats have been talking about how these two men would have talked, and from there, that's how we would learn all of these other things. If in fact there was no secret phone call.
I didn't actually hear Democrats saying that. I think there was a lot of interest to know who do those calls go to, which would make sense. It's a
mystery calls.
It's obviously an important thing in the investigation. Sure. The Republicans would not authorize subpoenas so we get the question answered. So I think people were interested in it. But I don't think I never heard a Democrat say Don Jr. called his father. The question is always, what did the president know? How was that information communicated to him? When did he learn those things? And the president's behaved in a way like he knew a lot. He says, I have something coming big on Hillary Monday,
yeah, you said
and
that
nothing's
once.
produced.
From the great state of Rhode Island, always great to have you on the program. Thank you, Congressman.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
The U.S. is withdrawing from a Reagan-era nuclear treaty with Russia after efforts to convince the Kremlin to stick to key parts of that agreement fail. So what comes next? We go live to the State Department for that update. Stay close.
Tuesday, the president addresses the nation, and only one network has all-day coverage you can't miss. Fox News, breaking down the State of the Union like no one else can. All day Tuesday. Don't miss the State of the Union on Fox News Channel.
Your brain changes as you get older, but Prevagen helps your brain with an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish. In clinical trials, Prevagen has been shown to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, healthier brain, better life.
Sometimes you just know when you've hit a home run. That's why I use Blue Emu Pain Relief Spray. It's fast-acting, odor-free, and it soothes all my aches and pain. And if you're like me, you'll also love the non-greasy, deep-penetrating Blue Emu Cream. Take it from me. It works fast and you won't stink.
HelloFresh has something delicious to deliver for everyone. It will get you cooking a mean burger, finishing dinner in no time, loving every bite, reaching for seconds, and you'll feel great inside and out. This is what 5-star deliciousness looks like. Go to HelloFresh.com and join America's #1 meal kit company. Use code TV80 to get $80 off. HelloFresh, get cooking.
So I'm searching for my show, and the dish guy just appears. Said he overheard my death scroll? I said, And he said the sound of scrolling channels to death. Said with Dish, you just say what you want, and it's on.
Control your TV by voice remote or Amazon Alexa or your Google Assistant. Only with Dish. Tuned into you.
A message from the Pulaski Law Firm. A government study reports thousands of workers have been diagnosed with asbestos-related mesothelioma. To compensate those affected, asbestos trusts have been established with $30 billion in initial funding. You may be entitled to financial compensation without ever going to court. Act now. Call 1-800-950-MESO for a free consultation. If you've been diagnosed with mesothelioma, get the best care available. Then call us. Mesothelioma. Don't fight it alone.
Hi, I'm Joan London. Today's senior living communities have never been better. With amazing amenities like movie theaters, exercise rooms and swimming pools, public cafes, bars and bistros, even pet care services. And there's never been an easier way to get great advice. A Place for Mom is a free service that pairs you with a local advisor to help you sort through your options and find the perfect place. A Place for Mom. You know your family. We know senior living. Together we'll make the right choice.
New England, Los Angeles, the championship game is finally here, and we're making Super bigger than your Sunday night bowl of queso, because there's a new way to get skin in the game, the DraftKings Championship Millionaire. It packs all of the intensity of fantasy into just one game. Plus, when you sign up and make your first deposit, you can play free with promo code SUNDAY. So don't wait. There's still time to play free for the $1 million top prize and crank Super all the way up. DraftKings, the game inside the game.
If you are considering silver for your savings and retirement accounts, here is an amazing offer from Lear Capital. Now you can receive $200, $500, up to $2,000 worth of these all-new silver Snowy Owl coins free with a qualifying purchase. The Snowy Owl is made from the finest silver of any coin in the world. Its popular 1.5-ounce size makes it both valuable and affordable. And because it comes with a government guarantee, it's IRA eligible. With the price of silver so low, now is the perfect time to stop considering silver and own it. Call Lear Capital at 1-800-769-8500 for this exclusive report, Sky High Silver, and ask how you can get up to $2,000 worth of silver Snowy Owl coins free with a qualifying purchase. Plus, for a limited time, you can own this premium 10-ounce silver Snowy Owl coin. Supply is limited, so call now. 1-800-769-8500. 1-800-769-8500.
President Trump will deliver the State of the Union on Tuesday. He said some of the topics may include North Korea and the recent abortion controversy. This is The Hill is reporting that Georgia Democrats John Lewis and Hank Johnson will not attend Tuesday night. Johnson came under fire earlier this year for comparing the president to Hitler. And as for the civil rights hero Lewis, he is continuing his long-standing boycott of the president's speeches. He was one of the many Democrats not to attend the annual speech last year. Fox News alert on this. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has announced the United States will suspend a Cold War-era arms treaty with Russia. The White House accusing Moscow of failing to comply with that agreement. But the move also is facing some pushback from critics who say this could reignite a nuclear arms race. Rich Edson is live for us at the State Department. Rich?
Good afternoon, Harris. And Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says it's the duty of the United States to respond when Russia so brazenly disregards its obligations under this treaty. For years, the United States, across a couple of administrations, has claimed that Russia is in violation of the INF Treaty. And the Secretary's argument is, why would the U.S. continue complying when Russia ignores it?
The INF document is being violated by the Russians. That is the very agreement that they signed up for. We didn't force them into the agreement. They decided this was in their best interest. They've now decided it's not in their best interest to comply with that agreement.
So Secretary Pompeo announced tomorrow that the U.S. will suspend the agreement. That gives Russia 6 more months to comply with the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty before the U.S. formally withdraws. Officials say they expect Russia will remain in violation. The agreement was largely designed to protect European allies, and so in response to this, the NATO Secretary General has said, quote, Russia is in material breach of the INF Treaty and must use next 6 months to return to full and verifiable compliance or bear sole responsibility for its demise. NATO fully supports the U.S. suspension and notification of withdrawal from the treaty. The U.S. claims Russia's new cruise missile violates the INF agreement. Russia disagrees with that. 2 months ago, the administration notified Russia that it was in material breach of this agreement, gave the Russian government 60 days to fix it, and then they entered into negotiations. That all failed. In 1987, the U.S. and Soviet Union signed the INF Treaty. It prohibits testing and deploying any land-based cruise or ballistic missiles with a range from about 300 miles to 3,400 miles. A senior administration official stresses that the U.S. decision is based on Russia's violation, though acknowledges that China, if it were part of this agreement, would have more than 1,000 missiles that would be banned under the treaty. China was never a party to the agreement, but it's an element in all of this. There are critics who say that the U.S. withdrawal will lead to proliferation. To that, a senior administration official says if there is an arms race, it's Russia that started it. Harris?
Great detail as the story continues to develop today. Rich Edson at the State Department, thank you very much. Republicans reportedly are looking to paint Democrats as outside of the mainstream ahead of 2020, but are many of the Democrats' policies catching on? We'll take a close look. Power Panel next.
All these options, how could we choose?
Welcome to Jimmy Say. Tonight, Jimmy Say, sardine surprise.
I just want a salad.
Jimmy Say sardines.
I'm allergic to small fish.
Jimmy Say sardines.
I don't understand. Well, Jimmy gets a big fat commission on every sardine surprise, so...
What if restaurants were like most investment firms?
Bon appetit.
Creative planning is different. We never collect commissions or hidden fees on your investments. Call for a free, no-obligation consultation.
Okay, Max, time to help Mrs. Tyler reach her health goals. I'm in. But first, Shelfie. Oh, yeah.
The great tasting nutrition of Ensure with up to 30 grams of protein and 26 vitamins and minerals. Ensure for strength and energy.
This is nice.
Yeah, this is nice.
How did you make the dip so rich and creamy?
Oh, it's a Philadelphia.
Family recipe. Can I see it? No.
New Philadelphia dips. So good, you'll take all the credit.
This is PillPack. Every day I have to remember to take my medication. And I hate walking around with all of this in my purse. Now I use PillPack. They deliver everything right to my door, so I never miss my medication. The best part, their service is free. I only pay my copays. Does your pharmacy do that? Visit PillPack.com today.
The biggest issues, the controversies facing our nation.
The American people, they deserve answers.
Sean tackles them all, only on Hannity.
AT&T Thanks is our way of showing appreciation just for choosing AT&T. Hey, the app won't save the planet from aliens.
But it will get my friend in for free.
It can't make blind dates less awkward.
But it will make paying for them less painful.
It probably won't fulfill your dreams of becoming a point guard.
But it will get you in the game with great seats.
And while the AT&T Thanks app won't download itself, it will give you exclusive benefits, access, and offers once you do. So get more for your thing. Download the app today.
Attention, this is a legal alert for anyone who has used Roundup Weed Killer and been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. If you used Roundup Weed Killer and have been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you may be entitled to significant compensation. A multi-million-dollar verdict was recently awarded to a man whose non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was linked to Roundup Weed Killer. If you used Roundup Weed Killer and were diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you may be entitled to significant compensation. Call now.
Duncan just protected his family with a $500,000 life insurance policy. How much do you think it cost him? $100 a month? $75? $50? Actually, Duncan got his $500,000 for under $28 a month, less than $1 a day. His secret? SelectQuote. In just minutes, a SelectQuote agent will comparison shop nearly a dozen highly rated life insurance companies and give you a choice of your 5 best rates. Duncan's wife, Cassie, got a $750,000 policy for under $23 a month. Give your family the security it needs at a price you can afford. Since 1985, SelectQuote has saved over 1 million families millions of dollars on life insurance. Call now, 800-304-5039, or visit SelectQuote.com. Discover what over 1 million families know now. We shop, you save.
With Senator Cory Booker announcing his presidential run today, and Senator Elizabeth Warren expected to announce next week, Republicans are seizing on the candidates' liberal positions to paint Democrats as far outside the mainstream. The Washington Post is pointing out, quote, casting Democrats as a scary and radical force is giving a fractured Republican Party a common thrust at a time when Trump's standing, even within his own party, has started to dip, end quote. Is that true? The Power Panel, Eric Metaxas, New York Times bestselling author and radio host, John Summers, former communications director for former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. Eric, I want to start with you. That's a strong accusation and statement. Is it true?
It doesn't really sound like an accusation. I mean, I think it's simply, I think it is true. Listen, I think that the issue is that you have a party, the Democrats, that are so anti-Trump that they've ceased caring about ideas. And when you really don't know who you are, whoever talks the loudest gets to determine where you go. So the radical left has pushed the party genuinely, this is no longer a metaphor, to be the party of baby killing, right? Now, you know, we are now advocating for late-term abortions, but everyone in America knows those are babies. Like, so when you get that radical, it's bad. And then it's also identity politics. I mean, if you don't have ideas, you put forward, like, you know, we have a black woman. And you think, okay, America, maybe 15 years ago, we would say, well, that's interesting. We need to give a black woman a chance. But in this day and age, we actually look at ideas because we are post-racial, right. We're post-sexist. So it's kind of empty, I think.
I want to give John Summers a chance to push back on any of that he would want to.
Yeah, well, clearly there are ideas, and that's why the Washington Post wrote what they wrote. So Eric clearly hasn't been paying attention to what Democrats have been talking about. Democrats have been talking about the issues that are actually important to the American people. You know, we saw that, you know, the Republicans are used to campaigning on fear. They've been doing it since the dawn of time, and that's how this administration's been governing for the last 2 years.
You don't think killing babies is scary?
Sorry, I didn't interrupt you, so let me talk, please. So, you know, the reality is we're actually talking about ways to increase access and affordability to health care. Republicans are out there talking about how to take it away. 59% of the American people actually feel that the Trump economy is working for the rich. And so they're starting to feel left behind. So I think they felt like they get, well, it's a poll, so you can dispute it if you like.
All right, I want to step in there because you were kind of talking while John was talking anyway, Eric, so I want to get in there with this. Why are Democrats talking about the abortion rights right now? And there's a whole lot that we could push back in terms of your facts on that, Eric. We could go all day long on percentages of people who say they are for and against things. But let's just stay with John for just a second on that. So why would you go for this cultural issue when it was proven last time around with Hillary Clinton, you guys needed an economic message? John?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were asking that question of Eric. Leading with an economic message, that's where people are. I mean, you look at the 2018 midterm elections, right? President Trump is out there, campaigning on a wall, while what Americans really wanted to hear was a plan for middle-class tax cuts and health care. And that's one of the reasons why we were able to win back the House. That's still where Americans' concerns lie today.
Eric and John, I will bring you back on another day. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harris.
I'll be right back.
We understand the anxiety that comes with picking a 2-for-5 mix and match order. Also, we kind of don't understand. There's literally no way to mess this up.
Arby's, we have the meats.
For sandwiches.
Not having a good breakfast can make you feel like your day never started. Get going with Carnation Breakfast Essentials. It has protein plus 21 vitamins and minerals, including calcium and vitamin D, to help your family be their best. Carnation Breakfast Essentials.
We use Angie's List because we can always find great local pros.
For any type of home project.
I use Angie's List if I need to find a plumber.
An electrician.
A painter.
I always use Angie's List because it's free.
It's free for me to read reviews written by real customers.
We can check their reputation to make sure they do quality work.
And now, to save time, Angie's List can actually match my project to a few qualified pros who can do the job.
To get the most reviews from real customers, all for free, go to angieslist.com today.
In Jamaica, we live by the don't worry philosophy. And Only Sandals gives you more of Jamaica because everything's included at 6 spectacular resorts. So you can stay at one and play at all of them. Play more, man. Dine at more restaurants, no problem. And celebrate more. All included, all unlimited. Sandals Resorts. More of Jamaica's best from the world's best. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
Do you have a life insurance policy you no longer need? Now you can sell your policy, even a term policy, for an immediate cash payment. Call Coventry Direct to learn more.
We thought we had planned carefully for our retirement.
But we quickly realized we needed a way to supplement our income.
Our friends sold their policy to help pay their medical bills. And that got me thinking. Maybe selling our policy could help with our retirement.
I was skeptical. So I did some research and called Coventry Direct. They explained life insurance is a valuable asset that can be sold.
We learned we could sell all of our policy or keep part of it with no future payments. Who knew? We sold our policy. Now we can relax and enjoy our retirement as we had planned.
If you have $100,000 or more of life insurance, you may qualify to sell your policy. Don't cancel or let your policy lapse without finding out what it's worth. Visit CoventryDirect.com to find out if your policy qualifies or call 1-800-983-6200. Coventry Direct, redefining insurance.
Our big Idaho potato truck is out there somewhere, and we're gonna find it. Oh, man. Always look for the grown in Idaho seal.
No more excuses with Cologuard.
We all make excuses for things we don't want to do. But when it comes to colon cancer screening,
I'm not doing that. I eat plenty of kale.
as I was saying, with Cologuard, you don't need an excuse.
All that prep? No thanks. That drink tastes horrible.
But there's no prep with Cologuard.
I can't take the time off work. Who has 2 days? And I feel fine. No symptoms.
Everybody, listen. All you need is a trip to the bathroom. If you're 50 or older and at average risk, Cologuard is the non-invasive option that finds 92% of colon cancers. You just get the kit in the mail, go to the bathroom, collect your sample, then ship it to the lab. This is your year. Own it.
Cologuard is not right for everyone. It is not for high-risk individuals, including those with a history of colon cancer or precancer, IBD, certain hereditary cancer syndromes, or a family history of colon cancer. Ask your doctor if Cologuard is right for you. Covered by Medicare and most major insurers.
You know what? I'm going to borrow some of the president's words to tell you about the State of the Union address. He was fired up from the White House today saying you don't want to miss it. Now, he gave a little bit of a tick-tock of what he might talk about, but his main message was it's going to be worth your time, it's worth your while, it's going to be a big deal. We'll be covering it all day right here on Fox News Channel, FNC for the cool kids. So don't miss it. That's next Tuesday, but for now, have a great weekend.
Fox News Alert, it's 2 p.m. in New York, and we're following several developing stories this hour. First, longtime Trump associate Roger Stone is back in court as we speak. Democratic New Jersey Senator Cory Booker about to hold a news conference outside his house after announcing he is running for president in 2020. The U.S. economy red hot, marking a record 100 straight months of job growth. And quarterbacks Tom Brady and Jared Goff gearing up for Super Bowl 53 between the Patriots and the Rams. Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, and this is the Daily Briefing. Roger Stone set to appear for a status hearing in the Russia probe. The big question today, whether the judge will issue a gag order. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge is live outside U.S. District Court in Washington. Catherine?
Well, thanks, Dana. Good afternoon. Roger Stone arrived here at the federal courthouse about 20 minutes ago. At this hour, he's in one of the courtrooms behind me. He's wearing a blue pinstripe suit, and he was asked by reporters whether he had any plans to talk to the media afterwards, and he said at this point he has no plans, and that's because he may face the prospect of a gag order from the federal judge today. He had a news conference here in Washington yesterday where he addressed that possibility.
I would point out that I make a living writing and speaking about politics. I would hope that the court would take that into consideration. Obviously, I will adhere to any ruling of the court if they should do that. On the other hand, I would also have the right, as I understand it, to appeal. So let's see what happens.
So we're also learning more about what the special counsel investigators gathered from the raid at Roger Stone's home in Florida a week ago today. We've got some aerial shots of that. What we know now, Dana, from the court filings is what they took was quoted as voluminous, so thumb drives, hard drives, computers, phones, as well as hundreds of pages of paper documents. And if there's one thing that Roger Stone's legal team and the special counsel agree on at this point, that he's willing to waive his right to a speedy trial because of the complexity of this case, Dana.
All right, Catherine, thank you. Fox News Alert Senator Cory Booker speaking now. Let's listen in.
Different races, different religions, even different political parties stood together, worked together, fought together to make this country stand for something. What makes us unique and different is that we have folks from all over the planet Earth, from Eastern Europe to Asia, from Western Europe to Africa, whose DNA is now on this soil, and by us working together, we did things that other people thought were impossible. My parents' generation knew that if we came together, blacks and whites, Christians and Jews, we can upend Jim Crow. We used to be a people that can point into the sky and look at the moon and change it from a dream to a destiny. There's no Republican or Democratic way to get there. You definitely don't get there by fighting each other, beating each other down, and dividing people against themselves. We did those things because we found our common ground. Now, this is not easy. It's the tough work of building a great community, or what King called the beloved community. It's hard to do that. But it's about time we get to the hard work of building this nation to be who we want us to be, our best values, our best ideals, the best of who we are. We need leadership in this country that understands what patriotism means. And patriotism is love of country, and you can't love your country unless you love your fellow countrymen and women. Doesn't mean we're always going to agree or some days always like each other. But we got to extend each other grace, less judgment, and more hard work to find common ground, to do the things that other people on the planet Earth don't think we can do. We're a nation that leads, and we've got to get back to doing that together. So I'm happy to answer any questions you all want, but I'm grateful, seriously grateful, to have you all in Newark. For those of you who only passed through our airport, take some time to the downtown and see the new buildings we built, new hotels. Go up the street, see the new supermarket we put in place, see the schools that are now rank us as the #1 city in America for beat the odds schools, high poverty, high performance. We're doing great things.
Senator,
my old friend.
You've never invited me to your house.
And after this, I'm going to tell you to get off my stairs. Get off my lawn.
Most of the Democrats I've talked to are skeptical about your message of love. They say that man cannot live on love alone, and they wonder if you're ready to take on a hard-nosed Donald Trump.
Well, I called on Cruz first because when I was mayor, he gave me my most difficult questions. I start with the hardest first. Look, love ain't easy. And our history in this country, some of the toughest, most heroic people that I admire, whose pictures hang in my office, whose statues are in the Capitol, they're folks that took on armed hate, billy clubs and dogs and fire hose with unarmed love, and they took down Jim Crow. There are folks like a great New Jerseyan, Alice Paul, who loved this country so much she was willing to demand that it live up to its promise. She was the first person ever arrested in front of the White House because she refused to let people in power undermine the power of the people, the rights of women. The people I admire are the people that lead by calling out the best of who we are and not the worst. So I'm running for president because I believe in us. I believe in these values. I'm going to put them before the American people. Hey, and if that's not what they want, then I won't be the next president of the United States. But I know my country. I know the goodness and the decency across this land. I've experienced it. My family, I'm in New Jersey because of that decency of white families who would not let my parents be denied housing because of the color of their skin. That's the kind of patriotism, that's the kind of love my family's experienced. I know it exists in our country. I believe in it. I'm putting my faith in that message. That heart and,
all right, we've been listening to
reality
Senator Cory Booker. He is announcing that he is going to run for president in 2020 on the Democratic ticket. Chris Stirewalt is Fox News politics editor and the editor of Halftime Report. You were watching that with me. I wondered what you thought about the scene, right? So every one that's jumped into the race so far has had a different way of getting in. Kamala Harris had this big event in California, and the president even said that was a pretty good outing. What do you think about this one?
So Cory Booker's whole story is the story of a mayor of a tough town, right? And he talked about it there. His narrative, the story of Cory Booker is a guy plays football at Stanford, but he goes home and he goes back to New Jersey and he helps turn around a town. He's selling that town. When he talked about the grocery store, when he talked about the quality of the schools, when he talked about those things, he was saying, as a mayor and now as a senator, this is what we've accomplished. And so in that way, I think it's quite effective, but it also underscores a problem that he has, which is he seems flaky sometimes. And whether it's the Spartacus moment or whatever, there's a thing where he's got this energy, this ebullience, but sometimes it can read a little strange.
Take a look at what he said earlier today on The View.
I campaigned against Stacey Abrams. I know that President Obama campaigned for her, Michelle Obama campaigned for her, and Oprah.
I still live in the Central Ward of Newark, New Jersey. The only senator that goes home to a community that's, still a low-income community, inner city community.
And they don't.
I'm not saying that they don't. I'm just saying that my pathway, the battles I've taken on, the things that people say other people can't do. To me, it's really what my mom challenged me to do as a kid. She just said, look, you have a debt to pay back, and you can't really pay it back. You got to pay it forward.
So paying it forward. And then also, I wanted to ask you about, because you were a local reporter for a long time. So he goes back home. He's making this announcement from his outside of his front home. And he goes to the first question he gives to a reporter who covered him in a tough way when he was mayor of Newark. And the question is that the Democrats are skeptical of your message because the reporter said, man cannot live on love alone. How could you possibly use love and actually win against Donald Trump?
Cory Booker is doing something on the one hand that is very conventional, but on the other hand is extremely unusual. So on the one hand, he is identifying himself as the African American, the black candidate in the race. He's launching on the first day of Black History Month with Frederick Daggone Douglass in his video. He is, and in the church, in the black church, and he's saying, I am the black candidate here. I'm going to win South Carolina. I'm going to be that, which is a conventional thing in Democratic politics dating back to Jesse Jackson. But on the other hand, he's offering a very different, almost radical sounding message for Democrats, which is to love your fellow American, and that this is not about hate and this is not about that, but that we have to love Republicans. We have to, white and black, as he talked about, white, black, Christian, Jew, what can be accomplished when people work together. That's a big departure from the other stuff that we're hearing from the other candidates.
Kamala Harris had a similar one, but one senator who has been very focused on specific policy outcomes that she wants is Senator Elizabeth Warren. So she got in the race a few weeks ago, if you'll remember that little video that we got. But she did something today that she is still just struggling with to put this issue of the Indian Nation and her DNA test behind her. She called the Cherokee Nation, the head of the Cherokee Nation, to apologize. This is what they said. Senator Warren has reached out to us and has apologized to the tribe. We are encouraged by this dialogue and understanding that being a Cherokee Nation tribal citizen is rooted in centuries of culture and laws, not through DNA tests. We are encouraged by her action and hope that the slurs and mockery of tribal citizens and Indian history and heritage will now come to an end. She's still struggling with this issue.
Yeah, but that's the right thing. Good for her, whether it's politically useful or not, good for her for being a grown-up and calling and saying that she was sorry. That's what you have to do sometimes, and good on her. And you also read there where the tribe is turning the message at the end towards Trump and talking about how he calls her Pocahontas. So there's a little something there.
They're hoping everyone can get behind that.
Yeah, and she probably had to do it.
And just quickly before I let you go, I actually feel like the State of the Union being moved a week actually puts the wind at President Trump's back with these jobs numbers going into next Tuesday. He wouldn't have had that if he had given the speech a week ago. So what do you think of that?
The fortunate fall? Maybe. And I think there's truth in what you say, plenty of, but I noticed today what he did, he's declaring victory. The wall exists, we've already done it, and you know what, never mind the rest of that stuff. So he says he's going to roll out something huge on Tuesday of next week, and it's going to be this big blockbuster. So now he's raising expectations for something that's going to be big.
Well, I'll be there in D.C. for all of that. All right, Chris Stirewalt, thank you.
Happy Friday.
A federal judge could slap Roger Stone with a gag order any moment now. That's harsh punishment for a guy that likes to talk a lot. How this might impact his trial. Plus, bipartisan committee trying to hammer out a deal on border security. But President Trump calling it a, quote, waste of time. Is declaring a national emergency the next step?
We've designed a much better looking wall that is also actually a better wall, which is an interesting combination. It's far more beautiful and it's better, it's much more protective.
Now Audible members get free fitness and wellness programs to transform your mind and body. Download the Audible app and start listening today.
When you combine Ancestry's DNA test with its historical records, you could learn you're from Ireland, Donegal, Ireland, and your ancestor was a fisherman with blue eyes, just like you. Begin your journey at Ancestry.com.
This is an urgent message from the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. There is an emergency food crisis for elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union.
This is a fight against time. What we're dealing with is coming out, meeting someone who's 85, 90 years old, can't get around, has no food, has no water, and just wants to give up and die. And that's where we come in. We are called to comfort these people, to be a blessing to their lives.
For just $25, we'll rush an emergency survival package to help one desperate elderly person for a month. Call right now, 800-346-4334.
In Ukraine, there's no support network. They don't have food cards or neighbors that come in to help. They're turning to us because they have nowhere else to turn.
Your gift is a lifeline to help these elderly Jewish Holocaust survivors, help them to live out their final years with dignity and love. Call right now, 800-346-4334.
What I pray is that you won't turn your eyes, but you will look at their suffering, and your heart will be changed.
With your gift of just $25, we can rush an emergency survival package to help one desperate elderly person for a month. Call right now, 800-346-4334.
Never before has it been more important to protect your assets, IRAs, and 401ks from the financial crisis that we're facing. Hi, I'm William Devane, and like you, I've worked hard for my money, and I'm not about to lose it now. With all the financial craziness in the world, I protect my retirement by buying gold every chance I get. I buy my gold from Rosalind Capital because I trust them. No sales gimmicks there. Rosalind will beat any price of any coin at any time. Just call them. And Rosalind will send you free information on how you can protect your assets and your retirement. So protect your future from the problems of the world. Invest in stability with Rosalind Capital.
Call now for your free gold, silver, and IRA transfer kits. And for a limited time, Rosalind is offering a $1,000 discount free to qualifying new customers. Call 800-630-8900. 800-630-8900. 800-630-8900.
Fox News Channel on Sirius XM. Your favorite shows on Channel 114. Plus, every story, every 15 minutes. Fox News headlines 24/7, Channel 115.
Fox News Alert is President Trump speaking just an hour ago, saying he has strong legal standing to declare a national emergency on our southern border, which would help him enable the military to help build his border wall. John Roberts is live at the White House for us. John?
Dana, good afternoon to you. President Trump has pretty much given up any hope that this conference of conferees between the House and Senate is going to come up with any kind of a solution by February the 15th. He told us in the cabinet room earlier today that in his mind, the idea of an emergency declaration after the 15th is a very real possibility, even if it does meet a court challenge. Listen here.
We will be looking at a national emergency because I don't think anything's going to happen. I think the Democrats don't want border security. I can only tell you this, John, we have very, very strong legal standing to win. We are doing it regardless. I mean, we haven't declared the national emergency yet, and yet we're building a lot of wall.
You expect to declare a national emergency?
I don't want to say, but you'll hear the State of the Union, and then you'll see what happens.
The president insists that the United States is already building a lot of wall. What that includes, for the most part, though, is replacing old fencing with a much stronger border barrier like the one you see on the screen there. But he still wants to build an additional 215 miles of barriers, most of it, about 168 miles in Texas. But because the wall cannot be built right along the border, for the most part, in Texas, the president acknowledging today that building a wall there will not stop Central American migrants